The boys, fascinated as always with modern sciences such as the photographic, were of course happy to comply. Chevrolet managed to mollify even Lindsay by borrowing his skimmer and holding it coyly in front of their faces as if to conceal a furtive kiss, while the frolicsome Darby Suckling, without whose spirited clowning no group snapshot would have been complete, threatened the pair with a baseball bat and a comical expression meant to convey his ingenuous notion of jealous rage. Lunchtime arrived, and with it Lindsay's announcement of early liberty. "Hurrah!" cried Chick Counterfly. "Me and old Suckling here, being starboard Liberty section, will just head on over to that Midway Plaisance to have us a peep at Little Egypt and that Polynesian exhibit. And if we can fit it in, why, some of those African Amazons, too. Oh, and don't worry, lad. Anything you need explained, just ask me." "Come on, boys," Chevrolet McAdoo, gesturing with a cigarette in a rhinestone-encrusted holder. "I'm headed in for work now. I can show you backstage at the South Seas, too." "Oh, boy! Oh, boy!" Darby's nose beginning to run. "Suckling!" screamed Lindsay, but to no avail. Crowds of colorfully dressed aeronauts had swept between them as ships arrived and took off, and the great makeshift aerodrome seethed with distractions and chance meetings. In fact, just about then, who should arrive aboard a stately, semi-rigid craft of Italian design but the boys' long-time friend and mentor, Professor Heino Vanderjuice of Yale University, a look of barely suppressed terror on his features, desperately preoccupied during the craft's descent with keeping secured to his head a stovepipe hat whose dents, scars, and departures from the cylindrical spoke as eloquently as its outdated style of a long and adventuresome history. "Galloping gas bags, but it's just capital to see you fellas again," the professor greeted them. "Last I heard, you'd come to grief down in New Orleans, no doubt from packing away more alligator à l'étouffée than that old inconvenience quite had the lift for." "Oh, an anxious hour or two, perhaps," allowed Randolph, his facial expression suggesting gastric memories. "Tell us, Professor, how is your work coming along? What recent marvels emerging from the Sloan Laboratory?" "Well, now, there's a student of Professor Gibbs whose work really bears looking into, young DeForest, a regular wizard with the electricity, along with a Japanese visitor, Mr. Kimura. But, say, where can a starving pedagogue and his pilot get a couple of those famous Chicago beefsteaks around here? Boys, like you to meet Ray Ipsow, without whom I'd still be back in outer Indianapolis, waiting for some interurban that never comes." "Just missed you boys once, over there in that cartoon business," the genial skyfarer informed them. "Trying to make it out of town a couple steps ahead of the Mahdi's army. Saw you sailing overhead. Wished I could have been on board. Had to settle for jumping in the river and waiting till the clambake subsided a little." "As it happened," Lindsay, the unit historian, recalled, "we caught a contrary wind and ended up in the middle of some unpleasantness in Ultra Juba, instead of down at Alex, where we had counted upon some weeks of educational diversion, not to mention a more salubrious atmosphere." "Why, and bless me," the professor cried, "if that isn't Merle Rideout I see." "Still up to no good," Merle beamed. "No need for introductions, then," Lindsay calculated. "Nah, we're partners in crime from back in the olden days in Connecticut, long before your time, fellas. I used to do some tinkering for him now and then. Don't suppose one of you boys could get a snap of us together?" "Sure," volunteered Miles.